Russian armed forces try to advance in the area northwest of Poltavka and the northeast of Vladimirovka. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War have announced the situation in the Dobropillia region. Thus, Z channels wrote that Putin's army is trying to bypass Vladimirovka in the Sofiyivka area. They are also bypassing the Ukrainian armed forces positions in the Chakhovo area. The Russian offensive and the nature of the attacks confirm an August 18th assessment by Ukrainian military observer Konstantin Mashovets, who said that units of the Russian 8th Combined Arms Army were advancing in the area east of Vladimirovka, threatening the flank of Ukrainian forces that were trying to cut off the base of the Russian breakthrough east and northeast of Dobropillia. The base of the breach is relatively narrow compared to its depth and runs along the line Dorozhno-Mayak, Vladimirovka. Mashovets estimated on August the 18th that Russian forces attacking east of Vladimirovka were advancing more slowly than Ukrainian forces. Mashovets reported on August the 19th that fighting had begun for Mayak. This indicates that Russian forces no longer control Mayak and other settlements that form the base of the breakthrough, and that Ukrainian forces are now threatening the very center of the breakthrough. Russian war correspondents claim that Russian troops have also advanced toward Veseloye and that fierce fighting continues in the Zolotyi Kolodets area. An officer in the Ukrainian brigade operating in the Dobropillia area reported on August the 19th that Ukrainian troops had repelled a Russian attack in the Veseloye area and that Russian troops were trying to bring in reserves to reinforce the breakthrough. Russian breakthrough tactics and low manpower density along the Pokrovskoye front appear to have allowed Russian forces to regain limited tactical maneuver to the east and southeast of Dobropillia, at least temporarily. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces in the Pokrovskoye direction have low manpower density along the front, particularly in the Dobropillia area, and do not have permanent defensive positions but rather intermittent outposts on the front lines. The terrain in the Dobropillia area features wide open fields and a low population density. All of these factors contribute to rapid tactical success, even in a trench warfare environment, allowing Russian forces to attempt a flanking maneuver to support a tactically significant breakthrough. Russian forces do not appear to have established a continuous defensive line within their narrow penetration to the east and northeast of Dobropillia, likely in part due to the infiltration tactics used to achieve the breakthrough. The tactical breakthrough is also a reflection of this low manpower density, and the relatively sparse frontline positions combined with the favorable terrain in the area may allow some degree of tactical maneuver. Russian forces will likely be unable to regain operational maneuverability on the battlefield in the near term, largely due to the threat that Ukrainian drones pose to Russian armor.
Military and diplomatic analysts reacted Tuesday to the White House meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and European leaders. According to Associated Press, Trump said Monday he's begun arrangements for a face-to-face meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky to discuss a pathway to end Russia's invasion of Ukraine, while affirming that the U.S. would back European security guarantees aimed at preventing Moscow from re-invading its neighbor once the current conflict ends. Former commanding general of the U.S. Army in Europe, Ben Hodges, told the AP that Trump and his team don't really understand NATO, because otherwise they would not be suggesting a NATO-style security guarantee where an attack against one member is treated as an attack against all. What the hell is that? You're in NATO or you're not, Hodges said. Details of the security guarantees and Trump's efforts to arrange peace talks were still evolving as an extended meeting among Trump, Zelensky and other European leaders wrapped up at the White House. But as they emerged from their talks, the leaders expressed guarded optimism that Trump could be finding momentum in his quest to fulfill his campaign promise of ending the grinding war. Tina Akvlidiani, a research fellow in EU foreign policy at CEPS in Brussels, said that momentum is extremely important. There should be further meetings and of course ceasefire, and the deal that can be acceptable for Ukraine as well as for President Putin and all the parties engaged, she added.
I don't think he understands, or else he doesn't really care. I mean, that administration is so poorly informed on geography, on the history, on what's at stake, why this war is happening. The fact that the envoy, Mr. Witkoff, consistently uses Russian talking points, I'm in disbelief. They also don't really understand NATO, that somehow we could have a NATO-like or NATO-style security guarantee. What the hell is that? I mean, you're in NATO or you're not. We have not even been willing to, from inside Poland or Romania, for example, to use weapons to shoot down Russian missiles that are headed for Ukrainian cities. We did that in Israel. We do that in against Yemen and the Houthis, but we're not even willing to do that. So the idea that we would do some sort of a security guarantee where American or British or French or German troops would be on the ground, deployed. I mean, I just have a lot of skepticism about this. This force is going to be inside Ukraine, a sovereign country that is at war. So, in my view, I would want this force integrated somehow into Ukraine's armed forces, where there's an overall commander. You can't have parallel commands, an American or British commander here inside a Ukrainian. I mean, it's not practical, and it will be very confusing when you start having missiles and drones flying in, or who's shooting artillery. It's confusing enough in perfect conditions. And so these are the kind of things that would have to be sorted out. I see zero credibility if you put pockets of European troops and Americans in various Ukrainian towns to do what? I mean, what are they doing? And that will not impress the Russians at all.
They were definitely at the best unified in Washington that we've seen. I mean, it's not new that European Union often struggles within divisions within the Union, so internal divisions across the member states. We also, of course, know that not every member state was represented around the table, but we had, several EU leaders, and of course the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, along with the NATO Secretary General. So I think that was the very good unity that we've just seen. President Trump is indeed, he's shown many times changing his mind, and this is the momentum to be seized and to continue this discussion. And we're just expecting what will be the next steps. That will be more than talks, right? This should be further meetings and, of course, ceasefire and the deal that can be acceptable for Ukraine as well as for President Putin and all the parties engaged.